I would rather talk about
It's cute, Delia.
Daylight come and me want go home.
Otho, are you doing
Work
this?
all night and a drink a rum. Daylight come and me want go home. Stack banana till the morning come. Daylight come and me want go home. Come, Mr. Tallyman, tally me banana. Daylight come and me want go home. Come, Mr. Tallyman, tally me banana. Daylight come and me want go home. Live 6 foot, 7 foot, 8 foot bunch. Daylight come and me want go home. 6 foot, 7 foot, 8 foot bunch. Daylight come and me want go home. Day is a day, oh. Daylight come and me want go home. Day is a day, is a day, is a day. Daylight come and me want go home. A beautiful bunch, a ripe banana. Daylight come and we want go home. Hide the deadly black tarantula. Daylight come and we want go home. Live 6 foot, 7 foot, 8 foot, 1.
Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice! Welcome back to the VHS Club. You need to watch this movie if you have not seen this movie. It is so very good. This is
That
the Beetlejuice
scene.
episode.
We just watched the clip where they get possessed by the ghost and start singing Deo and dancing around the dinner table, and this scene makes the movie for me.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
absolutely hilarious.
I rewatched this one tonight, and the second it was over, I went back to that scene and watched that scene like 2 more times, just that scene. I was like, one more time. It is
I think my
absolutely
favorite My favorite part is the completely horrified and shocked expression on Catherine O'Hara's face throughout the whole thing, because she's like, I'm not doing this. This is embarrassing. I'm trying to impress these people. Yeah. And she's just very into the physical movements, but her face doesn't match her movements. It's brilliant.
Yeah, I think it would be incredibly
timing.
difficult to be both like mouth singing a song, dancing, and then also trying to look like you're not in control of your own body. Like it's a
right?
certain set of skills, and it's really, really impressive.
Like they all do it really well, but I find she really steals that whole part of the movie. Like, definitely.
Oh,
so
my goodness.
a quick little recap of the movie. This very cute, cozy little like married couple, like young married American couple, live in this cute small little town, and for their vacation this year they're spending it at home to do, to re-wallpaper and work on their train set.
Relatable.
And they go for a quick little drive into town to pick up some more like wallpapering supplies. swerve to hit a dog, fall off of a
To avoid
enclosed...
hitting the dog. If they had just hit
Yeah.
that dog,
So,
things would have been
then
fine.
it would have been fine. The dog actually killed them, for being
The dog,
honest.
the dog straight up killed them, yeah.
They fall off this bridge, and they shortly realize thereafter that they're back in their house. They're not sure how they got there, and they're like, hey, there's a handbook for the dead, which wouldn't that be handy? Which they don't really read, so it doesn't help them too much.
It's too complicated. They keep saying that, like,
It's
they
too
try to read it, and it's like it doesn't make any sense. It really only makes sense to Lydia, the daughter of the family that moves into their house later, which is just glorious.
Yes. So they see that this new couple or this new family is moving into their house, and they're horrified because the mother wants to change everything. She needs to express her art, and they try to haunt the family to get them to leave, but they're not very good at it because they're just new ghosts. So
And
there's
they're
little
just way
back and
too
forth
cute.
where they're very adorable. They're just sweet people. And they go to the afterlife world to that it's not really explained, but they go somewhere where it's like a waiting room to check in once you're dead kind of thing.
Yeah.
And they just are kind of very much what social, not like, I was going to say very much what social workers do. That's not entirely true.
no,
They're
but
overworked, but
it's
like
like
it wasn't
a waiting
super
room.
helpful.
Yeah.
They were just like,
she's a
well, you just need
caseworker.
to be better.
The quote unquote caseworker for the
Like,
dead.
you just need to be better at haunting.
Yeah.
It's like, what? Like, we didn't know we were dead. And they're warned about this character, Beetlejuice, their caseworker's former assistant who decided to strike out on their own. So when they are haunting this family and they realize it doesn't work, because after the little Deo scene that we just watched, they immediately think, how can we capitalize on this? How can we monetize the haunted house that we live in? So the ghosts are very upset. So they call Beetlejuice. But he's a little too chaotic and a little too out of control. So they keep trying to send him back, and there's this whole little back and forth, which then ends in the ghosts and the new family living together happily ever after in the house together. And Beetlejuice is still around.
Yeah, it's really wonderful, and it's so funny when Nat and I were talking before we jumped on for the show. I, in typical Katie fashion, remembered almost nothing from this movie. So I love this movie, and I have seen it probably a number of times, but it's been a very long time since I've rewatched it. And I remembered a couple of things. One, like how much I adored Beetlejuice. Two, I remembered how cool their attic was, because again, we've said in previous shows, we never had anything quite as cool. I now have an attic this cool in my own house, but I thought the attic was really cool. And I remembered how awesome Lydia, who is played by Winona Ryder, how awesome her outfits were. This like very Wednesday dark epic style. But that was it. Like, so the movie started and I was like, oh, Alec Baldwin is in this. I had a lot of feelings, but it was a really fun rewatch. And if you're like me and you have kids who are in that kind of preteen tween age set, at least from my perspective, it's not all that scary. It kind of kicked off one of these series of movies that were in this like funny horror movie, like it's like a light horror movie, so it's a nice kind of introduction. It's a dark comedy genre? Right? Yeah, it's like a family horror genre. Like my kids would have no problem watching this and rewatching it. I remembered I was like, oh yeah, this would be fine as far as watching goes. So
yeah, I mean, it was hugely popular with families and with kids. It spawned a whole bunch of like kids merch and a whole bunch of like a kids cartoon, which rewatching the movie, I was like, Beetlejuice only shows up like literally
halfway
58
through.
minutes into the movie of like an hour and 30-minute movie.
And he only
he
has
shows up
something
at the
like
58 mark.
14 minutes of screen time. Like he's hardly in it. Which
he
makes
really
it
is
kind of better, I mean, in some ways, because he's sort of like, he's there. And what I love about this movie is there's no explanation whatsoever for any of this. Like, there's no, like, other than like sort of an in passing moment where the like caseworker tells them that Beetlejuice used to be her coworker, her like sidekick assistant. That's it.
Yeah.
And then he went rogue. And there's also no mention of, and we'll post Nat found an amazing article about this, but there's no mention either of these like sandworms that exist in this world. They just sort of appear. There's no backstory. There's no like, they're just there and kind of crazy looking. And it is absolutely
It was
amazing.
definitely more fleshed out in the kids cartoon that followed the movie, which was funny because I'm watching it and it's like, oh, but doesn't this happen? I'm like, probably in the cartoon, because definitely not in the movie.
Yeah, so
Which I think in the cartoon, Beetlejuice and Lydia are the main characters and not the Maitlands.
Yeah,
which is the cute Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis.
The
couple.
Maitlands are not in the cartoon at all. So the cartoon is just predominantly Beetlejuice and Lydia. So, and it's much more like hijinks and fun than in the movie where he like tries to force her to be his child bride, which is definitely problematic. But
but like, why is that a running theme in our movies that we're reviewing child brides?
Sorry, friends.
Eesh.
It is so we have some amazing facts coming through, so I'm super appreciative of our live studio audience, the Tater Tots, who are always dropping like the absolute best facts for us and things. So Paul says Tim Burton feared the entire Deo sequence wouldn't go over well, since in his opinion it wasn't very funny, but it was actually one of the like most iconic parts of this movie. And this is a great
made the whole movie. I think the movie probably wouldn't have been as successful without it, if at all. The movie's weird.
It apparently, which I didn't know this fact, but Beetlejuice was the first DVD sent out by Netflix in 1998. So beginning of the ends of Blockbuster. right
for any of our young listeners, Netflix used to do a mail-in DVD subscription.
They would send physical DVDs to you.
To your house. Yeah. So it was before there was they didn't used to have an online platform. It was physical. Some people are probably like, what? I think you heard it.
And then this is an absolutely great quote, so thanks, Doc, for sharing it. One of his Beetlejuice's first lines is, I attended Juilliard. I'm a graduate of the Harvard Business School. I traveled quite extensively. I lived through the Black Plague, and I had a pretty good time during that. He's just
quoting off his experience.
Yeah, wonderfully strange, and such a great foil to like the just like over the top wholesomeness of this couple. So like from the very beginning of the movie, both Gina Davis, who is absolutely incredible, and Alec Baldwin, who is like surprisingly good in this, the two of them are just like so in love and so like nice. They're like literally the definition of the word nice throughout the, like they're just wonderful. And so Beetlejuice is just everything that they are not, which I think just makes it so much funnier all the way through, because they're forced to like be scary, which they're clearly never going to be good at. Like they're never going to scare this, even if this family who was moved in wasn't crazy, which they definitely are. There is no chance that this couple is going to be able to scare anyone out of their home. It's just not going to happen.
No, and what they really wanted from the beginning was just to have a family move in that they could coexist with, which is what they got. And they got the daughter they always wanted, because they always wanted a kid, and it was implied early in the movie by this horrible neighbor / maybe relative.
I know.
Called Jane.
Can we talk about Jane for a minute? I mean, boundaries. Jane has no boundaries whatsoever. She's like, you really shouldn't be in this house. It's too big for you. You don't have children. It's like, okay, Jane.
Which is like, oh, sorry, dear. I didn't mean to insult your womb. Like, what, Jane? And even later in the movie, she pulls in to go see the new people that moved in, and like just peels up onto the grass, like onto the lawn.
Yep.
Like, what? Jane was terrible. She was the true villain of the movie, besides the dog that killed the Maitlands.
Yeah, I know. And it's funny because, again, I like completely forgot the entire, not the premise of this movie, but like most of the movie. And so when they're in the car getting like supplies, I knew that they were going to die at some point. But the dog like crossed in front of them. I was like, whose dog is this? And then later I was like, oh, right, the dog, right. That was the plot device.
It's like the car's teetering at the end, like edge of the bridge, and it's being held up by this like one plank, and the dog is standing on it, and they're like, no, don't get off the planks. And the dog looks at them and is just like, yep,
Just
I'm getting
jumps
off
right
the
off.
plank.
Yep, just
Like,
jumps. Just
I feel
jumps
like
right
that
off.
accident was way worse than it needed to be because they weren't going fast.
I know, yeah,
And
they were going
they
super slow.
crashed through like an enclosed, like a covered bridge.
Yeah, that bridge was not well
And then
built.
they flip like what, like 4 or 5 feet from the bridge into like the stream
Yeah.
and
And
are
the,
dead. Like they couldn't get out of that. Like they
yeah.
flipped down like a couple feet. Like
Yeah, and they apparently
ugh.
drowned is what they say like a couple of times in
Yeah.
the movie that they drowned. I was
It's
like,
like, how did
really?
they
Like
get
you could.
trapped? Like, what's the
Yeah.
rock bed situation of that stream? But
I don't
anyway,
know.
it's
This
a
movie
little
doesn't believe
dramatic.
in explaining anything. So I love this comment from Doc. I thought this throughout the movie as well, that the wholesomeness of these characters was very, very similar to Rocky Horror's Brad and
Yeah.
Janet. I agree. I think it was just so like from the very moment that they're there, they're like choosing wallpaper, they're giving each other like gifts for their staycation. Like they're just like way too cute to be. That is not real life at all.
Yeah.
Nowhere near.
We're like, we don't want to get away at all. We just want to stay home. Like,
Yeah, and work on our very like
yeah.
ridiculously, I don't even, like wallpapered old home.
One thing that I kind of really liked was how there was like a contrast, a very subtle contrast from like the costuming to the set to the music.
Yeah.
And it just made it all sort of not fit together and
Yeah.
make it into
Mhm.
this fictional time period and also made it look cartoonish. It's like they're
Mhm.
in the house, which looks like a particular time period,
Yeah.
kind of like Little House on a Prairie meets a doily situation.
Yeah.
And they're dressed kind of 80s, 90s ish,
Ish, but very, you're right, like very Little House on the Open. Like it's very
but
kind
not.
of old fashioned even for that time.
Yeah. But then at the same time, so you have like those two things that look kind of at odds. And then when you see sort of out the window, it's very obviously like an over colorized, like bright blue sky outside that looks fake. So
Mhm.
it, like they really created this sort of world that was like a mix of cartoon and live action, which we
Yeah.
get more into when they go to the afterlife. And it's like they're the only like human looking
I know, that
dead
was
people. Everybody else is like alien, like they're either blue or purple or
or
green. Or at one point,
cut
a
in
bit later, there was
half,
like
or
the
they're
football
like
team. Yeah,
smashed, or yeah, they're like, they also like look more like how they extreme versions of how they died, like whereas I guess because these guys drowned, like they don't look injured at all for having for having died in a car crash, and they, yeah,
no.
you're right, they just look like completely normal themselves as
Like
if
there's
they're
the girl that's cut in half, but like
Mhm.
her guts that are spilling out of her body is like all sequins, like sequins red. It's quite, jazzy, but
Yeah. Well, this
so
this
it's
movie won
yeah,
the
it's
Oscar
cartoonish.
that year for makeup and
Yeah,
yeah, I think it was makeup and special effects. So yeah, it definitely
that
deserved it.
makes
It was
sense.
pretty, I mean, for its time, pretty crazy. Paul says that the visual effects budget was just over $1 million. It was a major factor in Tim Burton deciding to make the effects look as tacky and B movie as possible.
It's like
Just 1 million, which sounds
okay.
like a lot. It was not a ton of money. This movie itself actually did really, really well at the box
Mhm.
office. So this is not typical to like what you might expect in rewatching this movie. You might be like, oh, this was a cult classic where it like didn't do very well when it first came out and kind of picked up steam. This one did
No.
really well right from the get-go. People loved it, and it kind of, I mean, really in many ways defined Tim Burton and Tim Burton's kind of crazy style. Not that he
His
hadn't
style,
done
yeah.
like he had done a few movies before this, and certainly certainly a lot afterwards, but this was pre Nightmare Before Christmas and some of the other things that he's like now kind of
Yeah,
known
it's
for.
like now you say Tim Burton and you have a very specific image in mind, but you didn't at this time. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so it definitely helped create his sort of style, like with the music and
Yeah. Oh,
again, the characters and costumes.
Kathy says that this movie had a really similar kind of cinematography to Toys. Yeah.
Yes,
That's a good one as well. We should add that one
with
to our list.
Robin
With
Williams.
Robin
Yeah,
Williams. Yeah. That you're right. It's sort of like I mean, it is kind of in that dark. Toys is also in that dark comedy
yeah,
world. So I wonder if there's just like a particular mood that they're trying to set where it does feel like almost so outrageous that it makes like the very real central theme of the movie feel a little bit more palatable. Like, I mean, this movie's entirely about death and dying in the afterlife, but the way that they portray it makes it feel somewhat less scary. And certainly how this ends, you know, where they're all kind of living together in
Happy
harmony,
and coexisting.
happy and
Yeah.
coexisting, makes it feel
And
much friendlier and safer.
and they do touch on even like heavier topics than just death. Like Lydia, who's a teen, she's somewhere between 13 and 15 in the movie.
Yeah.
Openly talks about suicide and even writes a suicide note, and that's really dark. but then because the Maitlands had always wanted a family and Lydia always wanted parents who actually parented and like cared about her at all, and she obviously doesn't get along with her father or her stepmother, and so it's like everybody kind of gets what they needed to be healthy and happy at the end of the movie, but it is like the subject matter is kind of dark.
It's definitely dark. It's definitely dark. And Josh is reminding us that the success of this movie is what convinced Warner Brothers to actually greenlight Batman. So we talked about Batman, was it last week or the week before? But a previous episode dived into Batman. So it's I think it's interesting sort of how all these movies are connected, and it's been fun because we always end up choosing a movie and then we do like a few others movies from either that actor or that director. So I guess it was 2 weeks ago because we did Batman and then we did Multiplicity and then this one.
Oh,
so
yes, that one.
watching kind of watching Michael Keaton too. Yeah, and you were saying that before we jumped on that like Michael Keaton just nails the kind of like sort of
gross,
over the top, like really, I don't know, macho, masculine. I don't know exactly what the right word is.
Creepy,
it's slightly different in each one, but a little bit creepy in each one.
Yeah, it's like he's some kind of creature that's dead, some humanoid dead thing. The second he meets Gina Davis's, like Barbara Maitland's ghost, he's like looking up her skirt and kisses her and tries to get into a threesome with her and her husband. Like he's immediately like, she even says it. She's like, I don't want this pervert near Lydia at all. Like, we need to protect the Lydia, like our soon to be daughter, because we're adopting her. You know, like like he's so disgusting, but so good at it. Yeah, he's very good at doing that, which is funny because it's very conflicting to Batman, who's his extremely moral good guy who pretends to be a bad guy, but he's actually really good.
Yeah.
So
this is a good question coming in from Doc, and I had this question as well. So the name Beetlejuice is actually spelled Betelgeuse, and it's it has to do with it's a star system, so it has to do with like I'm always gonna say it wrong. Not astrology, astronomy, study of stars. So yeah, it is interesting that they changed the name to Beetlejuice spelled like this. I mean, they do have that moment in the movie where he can't say his name himself, and he's trying to get Lydia to say his name. So he like makes a beetle appear, and she's like beetle, and then he makes like the orange juice being poured, and she's like breakfast. So like maybe it's a little bit of a play on that. They did go back and forth a ton. Let me just try to find the facts on the name of the movie. And there were some other like very weird weird names that they had in mind. So it was
I know again in the cartoon, but so whenever the ghosts try to leave the house, they end up in this sort of horrific barren sand land.
Yeah.
Kind of very Dune-esque because there's worms, sandworms.
Yeah,
and
it has that Dune vibe.
Yeah, and the sandworms basically spend all of their time hunting and eating, like attacking ghosts, and I guess they seem to bring them back to the afterlife check-in desk.
Yeah,
for whatever reason, but I'm like, I don't know what my point was. The sandworms, because so Beetlejuice calls where that is Saturn. So there is like a lot of space
Yeah, there is some
talk and
space.
play and hint at
Yeah. Paul
astronomy.
found it. I as I just scrolled there, Paul. You know, you and I are in kindred spirits. Paul says the studio originally wanted to call the film House Ghosts, and as a joke, Tim Burton suggested the name Scared Sheetless and was horrified when the studio actually considered using it. So I guess Beetlejuice is better than House Ghost or Scared
Yeah.
Sheetless. Which I mean, I guess would have been funny, but yeah, it's so amusing. Like once a movie is kind of, or any kind of pop culture is in your head, like I can't imagine it being called anything other than this, but definitely would have been funny.
Yes, it's called the Afterlife Check-in Desk. Like,
that would have been a great name for this one. Paul, you can be in charge of the Afterlife check-in desk. Oh
that'd be
man,
amazing.
I know. I do find it like absolutely wonderful that the check-in desk is like so much like the DMV and is completely ridiculous. And there's this wonderful scene at the very end, kind of an epilogue at the end of the movie, where Beetlejuice, is back, kind of waiting in that waiting room, and he's number like 9 million something or other, and they're now serving number 3, and he like grabs trades the ticket with the guy next to him who is number 4, and it's just like, I don't know, it's such a wonderful kind of like over the top and silly, and yet somehow still like relatable. That's probably not the right word, but I don't know, relatable, or you can figure it all out.
I mean, it does feel like we have to wait forever.
Yeah. And
Like for anything, you have an appointment where you have, especially if it's something important,
Yeah.
like renewing your license, you have to stand there forever and wait.
Absolutely.
They never have enough employees.
Nope.
Just seems to be some sort of thing that we do as a society. I don't know why. Understaffing.
I have so many. I know there's no answers to any of it, but I feel like I had so many questions about the family, the Dietzes. So like the father is wonderful in that he just wants to like relax and get away until there's like ghost stuff that happens, and then he wants to cash in on all the ghost stuff, but he's just like happy to make tea and have like the house be a distraction for his crazy second wife who's just like taking over and doing craziness. And then there's like so many questions about Winona Ryder's character, like what happened to her mom? Why is she like all in black all the time? Like I love her outfits, but you're like what
Yeah, like defines goth. Defines
what
goth girl.
happened to you? I mean, I guess her mother died, so that's bad. But like,
But did she? Do they ever say her mom?
They
died?
never say anything about her mom. We assume, I guess, because
we just know that she has a stepmother.
Yeah, we know that she's got a stepmother.
Who is a terrible artist who never sold anything. Though at the end of the movie, she's fashioning all of her sculptures on Beetlejuice. So like she has promising inspiration now for much better art than what she was producing before that.
I do love when the piece of art, her sculpture, falls off the house and she gets pinned underneath it, and she's like, I don't want to die by some of my artwork. She's just like,
who would want to die like this?
Who would want to die like this?
Even she knows it's bad.
Yeah.
So one thing I thought that must have been crazy to work on this set. At the beginning, Adam and Barbara are trying to haunt Delia and her interior designer, who are going around and like spray painting all the walls, like we're gonna do this one in mauve and spray paint it. And so they're trying to scare them. So it's like Barbara's there with Adam's head cut off, dripping blood, and they open the door and they're looking right at them, and you could see that the actors are looking at each other. So one set of actors in full horror, and the other set of actors are just like, I think this room would look really good in chartreuse.
Yeah,
like, just
they don't
like
see the ghost at all.
Deadpan. I'm like, that must have been so hard to keep like your giggles and your expressions in check.
It must have been a lot of scenes. I did a lot of takes for each scene. I did love the one where she's Barbara's hanging in the closet, like hanged herself in the closet, and they just open the door and just push her to the side to look through. Like
she like rips her face off too.
Yeah. Literally, and they're just slide
like,
her across.
Oh, look at all this old clothes in here. Which, like,
yeah.
Oh man, yeah. And also, how come the house wasn't like they didn't empty out, like even the realtor, which we know Jane is shit at everything, but like she didn't even empty out their clothes from the closet or drawers. Like
No.
she didn't clean up the magazines. I'm like, I understand buying a house as is, but like
I guess
Jane then says she's family, and
Yeah,
she
that
didn't
was
go through their stuff at all.
that was
Like,
kind of
that
a
was kind
weird
of weird.
a weird point. Like, do we think she actually was family? I feel like she wasn't.
No.
She's just crazy.
Yeah, I think so. And I love how she brags. Like, so, like, Delia Dietz brings in this crazy, and they're from, like, whatever fictional big city, and she brings in this interior designer who's, like, that weird, like, 80s and 90s stereotype of interior designers we had, where they're extremely flamboyant,
Yeah.
and we all questioned, like, everybody wanted to hire one, but they probably were actually terrible at their jobs, like, and always did the weirdest shit.
Mhm.
And she's like, oh, if you need any help with interior design, I designed everything on the inside myself, which we know is also a lie because they died going to get wallpaper to finish wallpapering.
Yeah.
Like, so we know that the Maitlands were doing it.
Again, I have a lot of questions. I feel like
Not a
so
strong brag.
So I know that there is a sequel coming out to this one in September, and there's not a ton of information that I was able to find about it, but it definitely has some of the original cast members in it, which is super exciting, and it does look to be an actual sequel. But I was like, man, it would be so fun to do like a movie just about Jane. Like, I'd love to know her backstory. I'd love to know, like, you could basically do a spin-off of almost any one of these characters, and I think it would be interesting. Like, literally any one of them. So yeah, I think it'll be a lot of fun to see where they go with that one.
I loved it also at the end. So Beetlejuice is because the ghosts do not want to be monetized. They don't want to be capitalized on for the Dietz's sake. They refuse to participate whenever they bring guests over to show off the ghosts, and the Maitlands are like, no, absolutely not.
Yeah.
And what's his name? Otho, the interior designer, he finds the manual, like the afterlife manual, and he's doing a seance to bring them, like, to trap them, which means we've learned earlier that they're going to turn all ugly and gross and get stuck in, like, this broom closet at the afterlife information
of
desk.
exercised
So,
ghosts.
like, yeah, of ghosts that were exorcised. So he's, like, halfway through exorcising them, and Lydia's like, I gotta call Beetlejuice so he can save them. And when he comes out in, like, his full chaotic, like, he's all over the place, pulling 20 different characters out of his hat and trying to scare them and moving stuff around, and he's chasing Otho, who's, like, now actually scared and wants to leave the house. And he just, like, comes up from behind him and, like, hugs him, which is terrifying. And he calls him, what does he say? He says, like, oh, where are you going, round boy? And I was just like, round boy is, like, the most polite way to rudely criticize somebody's weight. I was like, and it was I found it such like, contrast to Beetlejuice, who's, like, crass and gross the whole time, then politely calls this man round. Like,
yeah, this movie is actually, like,
it was hilarious.
Pretty light. Like, again, this is, like, unlike some of the other movies where you rewatch them with kids and you're like, oh wow, this was really, I should have watched this myself first. This was really inappropriate. Like, this one is actually, like, it has I think at one point he says the F word. And it, like, but other than that, it's pretty, like, it's pretty tame. Yeah, I mean, mentions of suicide, I guess, and it's certainly dark, so depending on that. But
they do, unlike I find some movies nowadays, especially kids movies that talk about, like, heavy topics like depression and thoughts of suicide. Whereas nowadays, those movies usually end on, like, oh, the people close to me realize something is wrong, roll credits. This movie gives them a happy ending. Yeah. And there is a solution. It's like, Lydia gets the emotional support she needs. The ghosts get to keep their home and have a family, start a family. Delia is successful in her art, and Dad gets to relax, like birdwatch, you know?
Yeah,
So it's
as
like,
Kathy says, there's the obligatory dance scene at the end of every 80s
Yes.
movie. It's so true.
That's
The
so
obligatory
true.
dance scene is always there, and it does make you feel better.
Movies do miss that.
Somehow
nowadays.
this is like a more positive version than like Casper, which also deals with all of these ones. So for whatever reason, this one is easier
Or
to watch
Inside
than
Out.
Casper. Yeah, or Inside Out. Yeah,
Easier to
seriously.
watch Inside Out. That was
Yeah.
a shocking theater experience when your son was, what, 3? And he's like, don't cry, Mommy, they have sparkly hair. It's fine. And we're
Yeah.
all like, ugh. The adults are super depressed because the movie was horrifically depressing.
That movie has all the feelings, both outside
Oh,
and inside.
man. Yeah. And like Kieran was like, they have sparkly hair. Who cares? This is great, right? He was 3. But no, this movie I found had such a better way of dealing with these topics, and basically it ended with open communication and compromise. Which if Michael Keaton had used that in Multiplicity, would have also saved a lot of heartache.
It's true. Multiplicity just really needed the dance break. What we were really missing in Multiplicity was the obligatory 80s and 90s dance break. Absolutely.
Yes, movie makers, we are putting out an official request. We need more unprovoked dance sequences.
Unprovoked dance sequences, yeah.
Like, they just need to be thrown in, and montages. They can be montages, you know, like where you're renovating or cleaning something up or fundraising or whatever it is. Like,
really
we need more dance breaks.
Absolutely. Oh, this is an interesting point. So Paul says that Beetlejuice is often misspelled because he doesn't want to be summoned by every person that happens upon his name. So he unintentionally says it 3 times while trying to pronounce it. Yeah, because they do. Yeah. He does have. There are people that kind of trip. He had the spelling of, like, the correct spelling of Beetlejuice is in this movie, but no one can properly pronounce
on his
it.
Little flyer.
On his little
so he's trying to
pops up.
Yeah, he's trying to trick the Maitlands into calling his name 3 times so he can get out.
Yeah.
And he has like a flyer, so you see it written down, and then again the second time he has a little TV commercial.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
Also, their caseworker, her name escapes me now. Joy, was it?
I don't remember, but she's so awesome. She's like the epitome of like the tiny, no nonsense, probably
like
New
chain
smoking lady, and you're like, yes,
yeah.
I am in for you.
You're like whiskey cigarette voice.
Yeah.
So when they act, so the Maitlands call him, but they get sucked into the miniature train set that they have in the attic. Mm-hmm. So they're in like his world, and then they accidentally figure out how to get out of it. And in it, like something that distracts Beetlejuice so they can get away is there's a whorehouse that pops up in like their miniature version of their town.
I know, and she's like, "Did you build that in your town?"
Which is and Adam's like, "I didn't do it," and then it like randomly Joy slips, "Oh, the whorehouse was my idea," and then continues with a different topic of conversation. And like, there's the football players. Like, hey, coach, where's the bathroom? Hey, coach. And she's like, I'm
Juno,
not your coach, you're dead.
Name. Yeah, Juno. That was
Juno.
Okay. Thanks, Doc. Yeah,
she's a J name.
Yeah, she is fantastic. And that whole part is so good because they're such like pure characters. And so like, obviously he didn't build that, but it's just so great. And they're like, I don't know, the fact that he's even like building a miniature version of the town that they live in up in the attic is just glorious. Like, I just really wanted to, I don't know. I really
small town, quiet hobby kind of people. I love it.
I'm like, oh man, like I totally need to build like a train set or a miniature of our town up in the attic. I'm really missing these opportunities. I have now the walk-up attic. I could totally be up there doing that. It's absolutely glorious.
Oh, Dane has a new project.
Yeah, Dane doesn't want any more projects. he's project out.
I hear that. I hear that deeply.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, sorry, I'm looking at Paul's comment here. So when Adam finds the advert for Beetlejuice, he actually says the name 3 times, but because he pronounces it wrong, the incantation doesn't work. I think it's too funny.
It struck me as funny when he's trying to get Lydia to say Beetlejuice, and he's like pops up like a cartoon cockroach, and the
Yeah.
The very well product placement Minute Maid orange
Minute Maid
juice.
orange juice, yeah.
And it's funny because she's trying to like say it, and I'm like, how did she like she messes it up several times before she gets it. I'm like, how is that possible? But it's because it's so ingrained into us now.
I know, yeah. You're like, Beetlejuice.
Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice,
Yeah.
Beetlejuice. Like, we
Yeah, she's
just
like,
always
breakfast, Beetle
Beetle
breakfast,
breakfast?
breakfast
Breakfast
Beetle,
drink. Breakfast orange?
drink, Beetle orange. You're like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Yeah.
It's one of the things about the folklore of so we can assume he's been trapped in this way
Yeah.
because he went rogue from the afterlife agency, if you will. and and it seems that one of the conditions we learn for him to get out of it, people have to use the incantation, but then also for him to be free to roam in the real world, or possibly between both, he needs to get married.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Which, I mean, like, none of it's confirmed. So he just says this, and this poor kid is like, I want you to save my real parents, or my chosen parents, you know? And like, so she's just like, yeah, I'll do anything. Sure, I'll marry you, whatever. But then we rapidly realize how gross he is. But great taste in wedding outfits.
great taste in wedding outfits. Yeah. Red is good luck.
Even his with his little white patent leather shoes, like, that was great.
Doc is reminding me of something that I was thinking of like throughout this movie. So Doc asked, did any of you do Bloody Mary 12 times in the bathroom mirror? Absolutely. Many times. Yeah, there's something about an incantation that you're just like, if I say it a lot of times, will it actually come true? So yeah, I don't know. I think it plays into a lot of that.
There's that whole kind of fear you had as a kid when you're, yeah, of course I'm gonna do it, and everybody's like, go do it, and you're like, yeah, like, I'm not scared of anything, and then you're there and you're like, okay, maybe I'm actually scared, because what if it does work?
What if it does work out?
What if it does? You know, which makes me think of what's that show where all this stuff is real? Supernatural.
Oh, you know what? I've never seen Supernatural.
It's a wild ride, Katie. I didn't finish that ride because I was like, I need to get off and take like a mental health break. Like those boys die every season. It's very emotionally draining.
It's too much.
It's not necessarily the greatest show, but it's very addictive and the characters are very lovable, so you really get sucked in. And anyways, it was on TV forever and ever and ever. And then apparently it's coming back, but the CW, I don't trust them anymore because they apparently got bought out by some very very religious group. So they're trying to reprogram everything into wholesome shows, which I'm like, the whole point of the CW is having 30-year-olds play teenagers that are inappropriately good looking. Yeah. And having, like, how else are kids going to learn about inappropriate high school situations?
It's true.
Without these 35-year-olds portraying teenagers? Like, where are kids' emotional traumas going to be when they're like, how come I don't have six-pack abs? You know, like,
I'm loving
and they're trying to go towards more Christian programming, which I'm like, don't bring back Supernatural then. Just leave it be. Let it die in peace. Like, it's gone over the rainbow road. Don't touch.
Val used to watch Supernatural, but it was a lot. And I'm loving the...
it was a lot, right?
We are in the light as a feather, stiff as a board territory of the craft. Yep, absolutely. Josh
did that too.
Josh said that he said his best friend's name 3 times and he rang the doorbell right after that. Yeah, right? We all, if you didn't grow up in this era, then you didn't get to fully appreciate the silly things that we tricked each other into believing were real. Yeah. it's never a dull moment. Well, we're nearing the point where we all need to drop in our potato ratings or other ratings if you have different ones for this one. You can't have more than 3 Beetlejuices, though. I don't think. I feel like 3 Beetlejuices is the top in this particular rating system. But yeah, this was just a really fun rewatch.
It was enjoyable. It was
better than I thought rewatching it would be, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, I think it definitely defined a sort of new aesthetic for film, like that whole cross of cartoon and but it's real, but a lot of stuff looks very cartoonish on purpose.
Yeah.
Was interesting. Like, I thought it was like, I don't know, I thought it brought us a lot more, it brought more to the game. Like, it was something different
Yeah.
in the film industry, which is really hard to do because we've been doing this since, what was the first movie ever made? Like a Ned Kelly. They got Ned Kelly and the Kelly Gang in Australia on film.
Oh,
I think that was like technically not a movie, like a fiction. It was like, but it was the first thing filmed that got distributed. And anyway, so it's been around for a really long time. Yeah. Ned Kelly Gang, also a not super great movie. I mean, it was a great movie, but it was starring Orlando Bloom, which is, he's good looking. He's good looking. Yeah.
I am loving these comments. Okay, so Kathy says definitely a 5. Paul gives it 5 Beatles, and George gives it 5 juices. So we're there, which is incredible. You all and your emoji use is just awesome. Kathy came back
on
with
fire, guys.
5 potatoes. If you are sitting here listening or watching this later, and you're like, "What the heck? I want to be able to rate movies." You can always hang out in the live studio audience. We live stream all of our recording sessions to YouTube. We're here most Thursday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, so you're always welcome to hang out. And Val says that Val's the only one who hasn't seen Beetlejuice yet, so come on, Val. It's at a bare minimum, you just need to watch the Deo scene like 5 more times to really fully appreciate the movie.
I think Catherine O'Hara is a national treasure, and she's a treasure to comedy, period. Like, she makes this movie, honestly. Like, everybody's very good in it, and all the characters are lovable, but she's just so good. She's so good. Straight-faced in this when she's the most absurd character.
It's kind of, it's so funny. For this one, it's really hard for me to pick a favorite. Like, I love the Maitlands as much as I love Beetlejuice, as much as I love Winona Ryder's cat. Like, they're all just so good in their own right. Like, they're each such extremes of a stereotype, and they're weird and so like different. Like, you know, like Catherine O'Hara's character is like at the height of like ridiculous fashion, quote unquote, and then you have Winona Ryder's character who's like all in black with like black veils on, and then you have Beetlejuice, and then you have that against the Maitlands, who are like as like, again, like pure and wholesome as they possibly could be. And it's even the
like prairie dress fantastic. And plaid shirts tucked in, you know, like can we talk about for just a second Delia's silk opera length glove headband that she had? I'm like, yes, please, where can I buy one?
All of her clothes. I want all of her clothes.
And Delia's.
I did love Delia.
Mind you, all that be a little
one glove in the Deo dance scene. She's just got one glove, and it's so great.
Which was that from her headband? Like
maybe, maybe the other glove has been turned into a headband. That's so true.
She may be a terrible sculptor, but she is a brilliant stylist.
Yeah, she's a brilliant stylist. Paul says Val's a few decades behind, which is exactly where she needs to be. Val, welcome to being a few decades behind like the rest of us. I think that's absolutely fantastic. Well, now I need to edit my rating because Nat and I both went with 4. But you may have all convinced us. Maybe we need to bump up to 5. It was just a really fun. It was a fun watch. It was just really fun all the way across. It checked all the fun boxes. Do I think it's like the world's best movie? No, but it was a very satisfying watch.
It served its purpose perfectly. Yeah. And it's something that I would be able to watch with kids. Yeah. Unlike Goonies, and I don't know if that's just because my brother and my friend Danny ruined that for me, but I was like...
Goonies is a real hard rewatch with kids. The first, 20 minutes of Goonies is just, sex innuendos and drug references and, crazy swearing, and you're like, oh, all right, I'm just gonna pause this. We'll just,
And the pirate's name, which is how my brother ruined it for me, is I can't watch this movie seriously now. I know you love it, but it's the dumbest thing ever. The pirate's name is One-Eyed Willie. They're talking about a dick the whole movie. And I'm like,
but kids wouldn't get that, though, unless someone like your brother pointed it out. So, that's less problematic than all
I
the
didn't
other
get it
stuff.
in over 40 years until Andrew pointed it out. Like, God. I love Goonies. Yeah,
Still
don't
a
worry,
great
Doc.
movie,
It's
but
like
if
one
you
of
have
my favorites.
Still an absolutely fantastic movie. You just can't watch it with kids, or if you're gonna watch it with kids,
It's
just
a
like
little scary with kids.
just don't watch the first 10 minutes with the kids. Just let them come in later. Which is probably what my parents did, because I don't remember any of the beginning of that movie, so they were probably like,
I
okay,
do,
here
and
we
I
go.
can't think of what you're talking about, to be honest. I'm
So
like, I can only think about One-Eyed Willie, but
I rewatched it recently with the kids. I think maybe a couple years back, and I like literally
Yeah.
sat everyone down. I was like, "Yay, Goonies! Like this is one of my favorite childhood movies. Like we are gonna love it." And the kids were like so excited. And the first like 10 minutes is just like it's like let's say every conceivable thing about sex, and then they're speaking in Spanish, but they're like saying completely inappropriate things, and they're writing it at the bottom. So my kids are like reading out loud. They're like. The translation, I was like, oh no, let's not watch that. I literally just paused it and was like, well, another night. Let's watch something else instead. Yeah. It's a great movie.
I love that movie.
And Doc's
It's
right.
big
Kids need to
adventure,
grow
right?
up. It's a big adventure
Yeah.
and it's super fun. But at the time where I was
Josh
trying to
is
play it to my kids, it was bad.
Josh says in the live audience, "Thanks for ruining Goonies for me." I'm like, "Hey, look, it got ruined for me. I'm taking my tater tots with me. I'm sorry, guys."
All potatoes are
Someone
going
else
down.
needs to feel my pain. I
Oh
love
my
Goonies.
gosh.
And I love the monster, and he has his cute little ear wiggles. I love him.
Yeah, it's a good
It's funny
one.
because at the beginning of the movie, he's terrifying. End of the movie, I'm like, he's so cute. My
Well, we may
brother's
have
like,
to-
that is the ugliest thing ever.
We may have to watch this one. So we will say we are off next week. So Nat's got some stuff, and Doc and I are actually going to be in Orlando. So I'll be handing out awards at a podcasting
Florida.
event, which is super exciting and fun. So we're off next week, but the following week we should figure out what we want to watch next. We could do so. Kathy was suggesting we stay in the world of Michael Keaton, which I'm happy to do for one more movie. She was suggesting Night. I don't think I've seen this one.
I'm
Night
sorry,
Shift.
Cherie. I ruined it for her too. My stupid brother. Oh, God.
So Kathy suggests
so-
Night Shift, which we could certainly do. I don't think I've seen that one, so that could be fun because we usually watch
I don't
movies
know.
I've seen. So that's awesome. Oh no, yeah, no. Now everyone is ruined. We could do Goonies. We could absolutely switch total tax and do Goonies, so you can all appreciate how different
One-Eyed Willie.
that movie is.
Sorry.
Yeah, we're open to ideas. You'll have to let us know. But yeah, one of those could be fun. We should do Night Shift. I don't think I've seen that one. And I'm in on Michael Keaton. Can you handle another Michael
Sounds
Keaton?
great.
Matt?
Of course I can. He's a brilliant actor. I mean,
He is a brilliant actor.
okay, so I didn't like Multiplicity, but he's a brilliant actor. He's brilliant in it. So, you know.
I can see. I think
no
that was a
shade to
good-
the Keaton.
I think that was a good episode to do though, because I feel like that one didn't live. So that one was like almost the reverse of Beetlejuice for me, where that one in my mind was way better than the reality of the
best.
movie. Whereas in my mind, Beetlejuice was like, oh, it was weird and I liked it, and I don't know if I'll like it again watching it. And I was like, oh, I love this. So it was definitely the opposite. Oh, Shelley Long and Henry Winkler on that. Oh well, yeah, we're in. All right, night shift.
Yeah, we're
2
in.
weeks. two
You
more
sold
weeks,
us,
we'll do
Kathy.
Night
We're
Shift.
in.
Yeah, totally sold. Oh yeah, Josh says yeah. So the Beetlejuice that'll give me time. So the Beetlejuice cartoon aired on Global TV here in Canada. Yeah, so we obsessively watched the cartoon, and I was trying to find. I have all of, or at least some very large percentage of the Beetlejuice TV show trading cards, like some insane amount. Like I think when
Collectible
they're
cards,
stacked, they're like tall, a tall.
Similar
stack of cards.
to my missing Batman cards, but yes.
Yeah, so Nat and I will continue to try to find while we're still in Michael Keaton world our Nat's Batman cards and my Beetlejuice cards, so we can post them on Instagram, because I have them somewhere. I just didn't get up into the attic soon enough. All right, well the group seems like they're in for Night Shift. Paul tells us that movie is about a mild-mannered morgue assistant is assigned to the night shift, and his new coworker, along with his prostitute neighbor, convince him of running a prostitution ring out of the morgue. It sounds
That
up
sounds
our alley.
amazing.
It sounds amazing.
Yeah.
We're in. Good job, Kathy.
I'm in.
We're
You said
in.
morgue attendant. I'm like, I'm there.
I'm
Let's
in.
do
Yeah,
it.
we're gonna stay in the dark death world. Yeah, that
And we
one
will
sounds good.
definitely hit up Goonies because
Yeah.
Goonies never say
Never say
die.
die. All right, maybe the
love
next
it.
week. We have the next few weeks planned then. So no
Yeah.
podcast next week. And then the following week we're gonna do Night Shift, and then the week after we will do Goonies.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay, well, thanks, guys. Thanks for coming to hang
hanging
out with
out.
us. And yeah, it was a good
Yeah.
episode.
Val, you got to catch up and tell us what you think. We care deeply about your opinion. So
Yes, we do.
you need to grab some popcorn and snuggle up and check out Beetlejuice and let us know. It's only about an hour and a half, so it's a pretty easy watch. Low risk. You can
Low
do it over a
maintenance
couple
watch.
days. Low maintenance watch. I think that'll be fantastic. Well, thanks, Nat. Thanks, everyone. We will see you in 2 weeks. And if you are listening or watching this later, thanks for being part of the replay squad. You can always check out our website, the VHSclubpod.com, to leave us a voicemail, leave a review, watch and listen to past episodes and everything in between. And hit up our movie list. Let us know what we should be adding. We're slowly working our way through, but we're also adding to the list. So I think we're still way behind, but that's okay. It means the podcast
Our
will
schedule, to borrow from the book/movie High Fidelity, our schedule is chronological.
Our schedule is chronological.
It is not. It is the order of our chronological
Yes.
timeline.
Yeah,
Nobody else's.
It's in Katie and Nat timeline, and that's fine.
Yeah.
We'll get there eventually. Well, thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye, everyone.
Bye.